A high school student with a 4.42 GPA and an SAT score of 1590 was rejected by 15 of the 18 colleges he applied for.
It's Tuesday, 1047 3rd floor, admissions office. An officer scrolls through an applicant's file, mediocre grades, forgettable essay, no awards, nothing remarkable. But then a single note buried at the bottom, not meant to be public, not meant to be seen. A few seconds later, the status quietly changes from rejected to under review. No explanation, no one asks why, because no one ever does. Meanwhile, across the country, a student rewrites their essay for the 7th time. 4.3 GPA, 1570 SAT score, first gen, low income, everything is on the line. They hit submit and wait, but they don't know that the game they're playing was never meant for them to win. And 1 year later, someone who was never on the admit list walks onto campus like they'd always belonged. No announcement, just a new name in the dorm registry. Do you understand what just happened? How does someone get into a school without ever getting accepted? That's where VIP admissions come in and where our story begins. Don't forget to subscribe. We did lots of research, and what we found wasn't just one loophole, not even two. There were 7. We don't know how many more out there, but at least this is what we have found. 7 ways to get into elite universities without earning it. Some of them you've probably heard of: legacy, donors, athletes, but the rest, they operate in shadows, invisible, intentional, and fully institutionalized. You might think you already know how they work, and maybe you do, but knowing about something isn't the same as knowing how deep it goes. So in the next few minutes, we'll walk you through every door they swore didn't exist, one by one. First one on our list is called legacy. Sounds noble, doesn't it? Like tradition, like honor, like something passed down by generations of excellence. But in college admissions, legacy is just Ivy League code for your parents paid their way in, and now it's your turn. Let's be honest, legacy doesn't mean you're gifted. It means you were born into the right mailing address. Forget merit, forget equality, forget all that glossy brochure BS about diversity and inclusion. Legacy says, this university is ours, it always has been. At Harvard, 36% of admitted students in a recent class were legacies. That's 1 in 3. Not because they were brilliant, but because their name rang a bell in the donor database. Even Harvard's own internal reports admitted the obvious. Legacy students had worse grades, lower test scores, and still got in. Take George W. Bush, SAT score, barely over 1200, got into Yale. Why? Legacy. And his dad was president. That was his real application. They'll never put that in the brochure because guaranteed admission for rich kids doesn't sound good in Latin. But here's the real slap in the face. Legacy applicants are 5 to 6 times more likely to get accepted. Legacy isn't a reward, it's a reservation. Your seat was never up for grabs. It was reserved 18 years ago, when they mailed in the birth certificate and the first donation check. Next, we meet the applicants who didn't even need legacy, just the possibility of money. It's called development cases. This is where it gets even filthier. Legacy? At least that's publicly known, but development cases? That's the Ivy League's dirty little secret. You're not a legacy, you're not even special, but your parents might donate. Oh yes, that's the magic word. You don't need talent, you don't need grades, you just need a checkbook, or the rumor of one. These kids aren't admitted for who they are. They're flagged for what their last name might one day pay for. You know, important academic stuff. They call them development prospects. Translation: future ATM machines for the college. Sometimes they get separate folders. Sometimes their files go straight to the president's desk, not because of academics, but because of asset management. One Ivy League officer put it bluntly: they're on a different playing field. And the best part? You don't even have to donate. Just look like the kind of family who might. Private school, family foundation, trust fund with a vague name. Bonus points if your dad plays golf with the dean. Or if a trustee casually calls to check in on your application. Does it look like admission process to you? It's insider trading with tax deductions. Jared Kushner, solid C+ student by all reports. But his dad donated $2.5 million to Harvard, and magically, Jared got in. Professors were stunned. One said, there was no way any of us thought he belonged here academically. But academics didn't matter. Harvard wasn't admitting a student. They were placing a bet that daddy would come back with another check. This isn't bribery, it's more insidious. It's legal institutionalized wealth washing, a tax write-off wrapped in a diploma. And you, the seat you stayed up 3 nights for, that was already part of a financial negotiation package. They didn't say no because you weren't good enough. They said no because you weren't profitable. In the next part, we expose the most creative scam of all, fake athletes and the sports no one actually watches. You thought sports scholarships were for underdog kids fighting their way out of tough neighborhoods with raw talent and hustle? Cute. At elite colleges, athletic admissions aren't about grit. They're about gatekeeping. And the gate? It swings wide open. If your family owns a boat, we're not talking football or basketball. That's for state schools. No, we're talking about rowing, sailing, fencing, squash, water polo, lacrosse. You know, the sports no one watches, except the kids who grew up inside a country club. Elite colleges reserve dozens of admission slots each year for athletes. But guess who they really mean? Stop thinking about the kids who breaks records or the ones who dominates state championships, but just the ones who happen to pick the right expensive hobby in 6th grade. Lower GPA? No problem. Safety score and dumpster? We'll look past it. Because if a coach puts you on the list, you're basically untouchable. It's called the coaches list, and once your name's on it, admissions officers are told, shut up and stamp the approval. In 2019, the Varsity Blues scandal made headlines. Wealthy parents faking photos of their kids playing water polo, bribing coaches, paying hundreds of thousands to cheat the system. One mom dropped $500,000 just to list her daughter as a fake rower, and the world gasped. But here's the punchline. They didn't hack the system. They used it exactly as intended, because the backdoor was always there. They just walked in wearing cleats. And if anyone asks, it's part of our commitment to diverse talents. Right, as long as those talents play lacrosse and summer in Martha's Vineyard. And if you weren't on the team, you were never even allowed in the stadium. Next, we talk about the applicants who never even needed a sport or a donation. All they needed was the right last name in the university directory. Faculty kids, politicians, children, billionaire spawn. Let's go there. Imagine this, your college application comes with a glowing letter of recommendation from the university president. Not because you cured cancer, not because you built a startup in your garage, but because your last name makes trustees smile or opens donor wallets without even asking. Welcome to faculty and VIP admission, where brilliance is optional, but pedigree is everything. If your parent's a tenured professor, you get a leg up. Not because you're a budding academic, but because the school wants to keep your parents from going to Princeton. They call it a benefit. Let's call it what it is, a family discount on Ivy League privilege. And then come the real heavyweights, the VIPs. Politicians, billionaires, celebrities, the kids who don't apply, they just appear. Their files don't go through normal review. They're pre-flagged, handled by senior staff, reviewed with a PR lens. Why? Because nothing sells prestige like a senator's daughter posting move-in day on Instagram. Think about it. Malia Obama at Harvard, Chelsea Clinton at Stanford, Drew Barrymore at UCLA. Were they smart? Probably. Did it matter? Not really. Were they reviewed like everyone else? Not a chance. Because this isn't about intelligence, it's about symbolism. These names are brands, and universities, they love good branding. One Ivy League officer said it best, there's the official process, and then there's the real one. So while you were calculating your GPA to the 3rd decimal, they hit speed dial and scheduled a campus tour. And their essay? It's spelled like M-O-N-E-Y. In the next part, we reveal the most polite rejection in higher education, the Z list, where rejection isn't the end, just a delayed yes. Rejection hurts, but want to know what hurts worse? Finding out they rejected you just to make room for someone else's gap year. Welcome to the Z list, the most polite backdoor money can buy. Here's how it works. You didn't make the cut. Your grades, subpar test scores, nothing special. But your last name? That raised eyebrows, in the right kind of way. Maybe your dad sits on a hedge fund. Maybe your family pledged a building. Maybe your aunt knows someone in the admissions office. Now, you might wonder, wait, how is this different from a development case? Good question. Here's the difference. Development case means we want your family's money, so we'll take you now. It's active, deliberate, and pay to enter. No waiting required. Z-list means you're useful but inconvenient, so we'll take you just later. You didn't make the public cut, but behind closed doors, you're already in. Just not yet. So unofficially, the college provides you an instruction. Go to Europe or do an internship for a year. That's the Z-list. It's not a loophole, it's a private runway, disguised as failure, but actually VIP boarding, just with a later departure time. And the best part? No one knows. To the public, you were rejected. To the school, you were pending arrival. No need to reapply, no essays, no grades, no updates. Just sit back and enjoy your bonus year of yacht photos and influencer internships. Meanwhile, the valedictorian from Detroit, 4.5 GPA, 1580 SAT score, 3 part-time jobs. Rejected, no callback, no Z, just silence. Next, the schools that were never public, the pipelines that start before high school, feeder schools. Let's talk about the factories that build admits. You thought the application process started in 12th grade. That's adorable. At the top prep schools, it starts around age 5, give or take. Welcome to the feeder pipeline, a velvet-lined express lane from America's most expensive high schools, straight into the Ivy League's front door. We're talking Phillips Exeter, Andover, Horace Mann, Deerfield, St. Paul's, not schools, status symbols with zip codes. If you're wearing that uniform, you're not applying to Harvard. You're being processed. Admissions officers call them known quantities. You know what that really means. They've already decided. These schools have private lines to Ivy League offices. They know the admissions officers and the review cycles. Sometimes they even know the decisions before they're official. Some students of known quantities get evaluated before they even submit their application. Your public high school ever offer that? At these places, tutors aren't optional. They're built in. Private essay consultants, interview coaches, application strategists, starting in 9th grade, sometimes 8th. And the price tag, at least $50,000 a year. And don't get shocked, because this consultation fee is extra. Here you're not paying for school, you're buying a membership. A membership in an invisible country club where Harvard is just the next stop on the tour. And you didn't even know the tour existed. So what happens when a kid from Exeter has a 1400 and a valedictorian from Detroit has a 1550? The Ivy League says, well, that Exeter kid just seems more polished. Translation, we trust our own. Because in this game, performance is optional, perception is policy. If your school wasn't on the list, sorry, neither were you. Next is the last one on our list. We reveal the one override more powerful than legacy, money, or sports. A single phone call from the right person. Let's talk about discretionary admits. You did everything right. Essays, deadlines, test scores, letters. You followed every single damn instruction they gave you. And still, you got passed over. Welcome to the discretionary list. You won't find it on a website. It's not a box on the Common App. There's no essay prompt. Just a whisper, an email, a name dropped in the right ear. Hey, this kid's mom knows the governor. He's tight with the board. Her family owns half of Connecticut. And suddenly, the rules, they become suggestions. Some call it the dean's interest list or the president's picks. What it really is, a side door for the ultra-connected. One Ivy League dean said it himself. We're told to take a second look, and we know what that means. Translation, the decision was made before the application even landed. All that's left is the paperwork to make it look legit. These aren't the smartest students. They're not even the most interesting. They're just the most strategically valuable. Politicians' kids, board members' nephews, power players' granddaughters. You were judged on potential. They got in on proximity. You needed a 1550 and a full resume just to be considered. They needed a last name that made someone raise an eyebrow, or a campaign fund. They call it college admission, but it's relationship brokerage, an auction of influence, where the deal gets sealed before the folder is even opened. And if no one whispered your name, you weren't just rejected, you were never even in the conversation. When Varsity Blues broke, it wasn't a revelation, it was confirmation. The only thing surprising was that someone finally got caught. And even then, the system didn't deny it. It just renamed it Legacy, Tradition, Holistic Review. Elegant words for a very old habit, preserving access for people who already have it. Netflix made a documentary, reporters wrote exposés, lawsuits followed, but most of it landed like a scandal, not a structure. They focused on who did it, not why it was possible. No one asked what else is still going on but hasn't been leaked yet, because deep down they didn't want the answer. And that's the real cover-up, not a hidden file, not a hacked email, not a criminal conspiracy, just enough silence from just enough people for just long enough. So no, the scandal barely scratched the system, and it revealed everyone important already knew, and stayed quiet anyway. Somewhere out there was a student who had everything right, not perfect, just right enough. And on paper, they should have made it, but they didn't. Not because they failed, but because someone else's name was already printed on the envelope. They'll never know that. They'll think they weren't enough, because that's the beauty of this system. It doesn't need to lie, it just waits for you to give up on your own. And that's what they're really counting on. You are watching Academic Empire. We will see you in the next one.